We're at Fitzy's Marina on the beautiful Breton Bay at Compton. Fitzy's has great crab cakes, open Thursdays through Sunday. Everyone here on Mondays when it's a holiday. We're here with John O'Connor. John is a former St. Mary's County Commissioner 2 terms and is now considering running again for his seat that he had before, representing everything from Colton's Point over to Golden Beach, north end of the county. Is that correct?
It is
John?
correct.
Okay. All right. So, John, you're watching county government. You're watching everything all the time. You're getting ready to announce your creation of your candidacy. The big issue here recently has been this Pascal House, which the commissioners had a presentation of a year ago on April 30th, and for an hour with their Bruce Bariano, their lobbyist, and they talked about it for an hour, and not a single one of them asked, well, where's it going to go? They sat there for an hour like bumps on a log. Nobody asked the magic question. An obviously good place for it, to put it now, would be at the old Leonardtown school, right there next to the government center. What do you think of that one?
Well, I think anything's better than what they were proposing in the first place. They frame it as a residential facility, so it's supposed to be built into treatment in that area. So the governmental center is a totally different ballgame. But there is 19 acres located behind the Veterans Facility that the county should be considering strongly, especially since the studies show that the north end of the county and that region needs mental health services.
Well, there's a nice 17-acre parcel near Randy Guy's house there in Clements. They could consider that.
They most certainly could.
Yeah, okay. All right. The county has now passed a new budget, which includes a tax hike.
That's for sure.
Okay. So, talking about the Pascal House, they proposed putting that on Mount Wolf Avenue, Mount Wolf Road, okay, right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And they seemed kind of surprised that the community went into rebellion. The director of the center actually bought the property in her own name. So a lot of weird stuff was going on there. And the county commissioners have this lobbyist, Bruce Bariano. They evidently don't like the lobbyists that the taxpayers hire, called the delegates and the senators. All right. Were you on the board that hired Bruce Bariano?
No.
Okay. Would you hire him again next year if you're elected?
I don't know. I don't know what the county is looking at right now.
Would you believe the county needs a lobbyist when it has 3 delegates and a senator? Isn't that their delegation to go represent the county?
There's a lot of things that Bruce was able to do for the county that otherwise wouldn't have gotten done because we are a Republican county. Do I think there's an actual need? No. I just think that there's a lot more that came back because Bruce is able to work bipartisan while our delegates are in chambers and doing other things. Do I think there's an actual need? No. Because what they were asking for, I don't know if there was an actual need for what they were even asking for. But I probably wouldn't hire a lobbyist.
Okay. Another former commissioner, Tom Jarbo, has filed and is running again for commissioner president. And he was just asked in an interview, would he form a nucleus with you and Eric Colvin to provide some common sense leadership for the county? How do you feel about that?
I think it's great. I liked working with Tom when he was on the board. I definitely enjoyed working with Eric. And I think both of them have solid judgment, solid decision making, and brought forward some great ideas. The best part about it was, no, we never agreed on everything, which if everybody's agreeing, then there's a problem. So that we don't ever want to have it where everybody's agreeing on everything. But we were able to work it through. I like that.
Okay. Can you find ways to cut the budget so you don't have to raise taxes?
I can not only find ways to cut the budget so we don't have to raise taxes, I can find ways to cut the budget to roll back the maxed out income tax that these commissioners have done, the excise tax, which is pushing businesses out of the county, especially small businesses and not big box stores, lower fees for parents that are putting kids into sports and other programming, and still manage to fund public safety in schools. This board has done nothing but tax and spend.
Okay. When they do that, they also borrow to be able to spend now and leave it for grandchildren to pay back. Like the county public debt has increased to nearly $300 million. Part of that is for the sheriff's new palace, new headquarters palace in Leonardtown. And when that was established, I asked other commissioners, and they said, no, we didn't have a citizen space needs study. They just depended on the sheriff's department and bureaucrats to tell them what they needed. And then they put that in the budget. Is that a good way to decide on the spending for public buildings?
No. So
Ask the bureaucrats?
No, I was on that board that put it into the budget. The space needs study was done by county staff and the sheriff's department saying what they needed. The sheriff's department headquarters as it sits now, I don't think it's fully necessary. I support some of the ancillary services that are needed there, like evidence processing, evidence holding, things that they've stated that surround the headquarters. But when you have a facility down in Lexington Park that is in a 24/7 completely staffed operation where you're having deputies there, when you have a station in the north end that isn't completely 24/7 full service to the citizens, you don't need to tell me that you need a full $60 million facility in Leonardtown to house all those people. The space needs study doesn't make sense anymore. So that needs to be relooked at.
Well, the county bought for $1 million a building that sat on the market over behind BJ's for 2 years without any takers or any bidders. They spent $1 million on it. It was taxed at like $800,000, but the county is very generous with the taxpayers' money. And that building is going unused. They have the crime lab. They park the vehicles for the crime lab over there, and they use them about maybe once or twice a month for a major crime. So that building basically is empty of people or functions.
Which building?
It's the building behind
BJ's?
Behind BJ's used to be the enterprise office.
Oh no, that building's heavily used. I know that for a fact because I visited it. It houses their criminal investigation division, their domestic violence coordinator. It has their interview rooms. It has their evidence technicians. I actually got a tour of the facility. Their entire processing facility is there. Quite frankly, I would say it's heavily used with the amount of shootings and crime that we have going on in the county.
So then they don't need to have those functions up in Leonardtown at a new sheriff's headquarters.
No, they need to have a larger facility for actually holding vehicles and processing larger vehicles inside a bay, which that does not have. Yeah.
Okay. So is there any real need for a new $60 million headquarters in Leonardtown?
No, not the building itself. No, and that's what I was getting at. When you have two other facilities that aren't fully occupied and being used to the maximum extent, then you don't need it.
What about all the police cars that are parked around on a couple different parking lots in Leonardtown? Are those? Why are they parked there? Why aren't they used?
Some of them are old and most likely vacancies. You looked at the last budget, and when they were going through the budget process, there was plenty of vacancies that were within the sheriff's department.
Well, when I looked at it, there were 27 vacancies of people who had left. So why did they leave?
Well, there's pay at other jurisdictions. There's climate in other jurisdictions. There's workload. People don't want to have to come to work and work every single minute of every single hour that they're there due to not having enough staffing. But that's more of a sheriff's department problem than a county commissioner problem.
Okay. Are teachers paid enough?
Yeah, I think teachers are paid adequately for what they're doing. I don't agree with the blueprint. Never have. I think that it's a recipe for disaster and failure, which is evident by Westmore's budget, which is being passed down to the county, and increases of local pension contributions. So that's why they had to pause certain aspects of it.
Should the school system be putting in metal detectors at the front door of the high schools rather than paving the sports fields with AstroTurf?
No, I don't believe in the metal detectors in the school. I don't. I think there's other alternative methods.
Okay. Well, they had another gun come into a school last January of last year at Great Mills High School, the same one they had a murder in.
Well, regardless of how you look at it, if you have metal detectors staged up, you're going to have kids staged up outside. So you're going to create a target outside, or you're going to create a target inside. There's school resource officers in the school, there's school security in the schools, and there's other ways to manage that versus having metal detectors. So So the question is about funding schools or metal detectors. I'm going to go with enriching sport activities versus metal detectors until they come up with a better solution.
Okay. What about the $1 million hot dog stand they put in? Could better use of bringing food trucks instead?
Yeah, that would definitely be a better use.
I mean, because then you're stuck with one menu. It's hot dogs.
Hot dogs and hamburgers.
And they could have a food truck for every sports event. Well,
That's
two
right.
or three of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. And all the volunteer agencies, they bring the food trucks around. But the school system got stuck on hot dogs. Maybe they're Pollock Johnnies. Okay. All right. So, in speaking about the school board, teachers' pay, could that be higher? I mean, you have a deputy making $185,000 on salary and overtime. Is that just bad management of the sheriff's department?
So actually, I think the pay scale would be bad management of the commissioners. The commissioners assign the overtime budget. The commissioners don't force the issue about making sure vacancies are filled. When I was originally on the board working with Tim Cameron, we came up with the Sheriff's Department Reserve Fund. So we didn't necessarily give them the money. We went ahead and said, all right, fill your vacancies. When you're ready, come back and we'll give you more money. And by the way, we're cutting your overtime budget. So it forces the situation to make sure that they're filling the vacancies. That's a dual-fold issue.
John, what is your view of the direction the county is going in right now in terms of land use, development, new subdivisions, more population, increasing demands for things developers want?
All right. You want me to finish answering the other question first?
Okay. All right, go ahead.
All right. So what I think is the high pay and overtime is a self-inflicting wound, which is high crime equals a need for the deputies to work more, which increases overtime. So it's a self-inflicting wound because getting ahead of that is part of the problem. So when you look at the deputies' pay and then you look at the teachers' pay, right, there should be some level of, I can't say parity because it's two different fields, but there should be some consideration given to the fact that teachers are going a 4-year degree, a master's degree, some of them have doctorate degrees, the overcrowding classrooms, and all the other responsibilities that put on them. Right? So I do think there's room for improvement on both sides. As far as land use and growth management, I believe that this current board has let it run away and just full steam ahead like they're at the racetrack watching the thoroughbred go. All right, you look at the north end of the county, it's starting to look like Waldorf, and it's funny.
Puff was right.
Puff was right. I was just about to say Puff's motto, keep Waldorf from Waldorf. Well, people gave him a hard time about it, but take a look around. Majority of people in the north end of the county just want to be left alone. They love rural St. Mary's County, and they don't want everything popping up everywhere. Then you look down where we have the population, traffic, the base, and we get more development, another 1,000 homes over the next 10 years, right? What is that going to do to the county? Then you get the other stores that are popping up. And mind you, these aren't small local businesses. These are big box stores. Why? Because of the excise tax. The local businesses can't afford to expand anymore. You just can't do it. So they've taxed the locals out of business and bringing in everybody else. So they let it run away.
Well, it started off in the 90s with this idea that we needed to have more workforce housing, or the other term for it, and what they did is they brought in subsidized housing, Section 8 housing, and they transferred populations from Prince George's County to here. They brought in a lot of crack cocaine crisis problems in the schools, law enforcement, and to the point that Lexington Park was named a hot spot during the Glenn Denning administration. That has only served to get worse. Now they say we need all this more housing, but it's basically what the developers need.
And let's be very clear, because this conversation always takes a different turn. And I actually had this conversation with Delegate Matt Morgan. There's a difference between affordable housing and subsidized housing. And this county has more than enough affordable housing based on the percentages of the median income. All right? And how it works is, no, when you're 18, 19, 20, or even 22 getting out of college, you just don't walk into buying a home. You know, that's something that you have to build to. Most people, actually women, have home ownership earlier than men. So in our county,
they're smarter.
Well, yeah, most times that's true. I think they have a better life expectancy than some of us men. But they look at it and they say, okay, well, I'm just going to walk in and buy a home. No, it doesn't work that way. And most people are either getting married or they have a dual income household, and then they're buying. We don't need to create more homes. The last check I had was 283 homes on the market that are affordable in St. Mary's County. That's on top of everything else we're building. So just like me, just like a lot of people, when you're young and you're building up your net worth and your success, you have to earn to where you're going to be. Home ownership is not a right. It is something that you can build your way to. There's more than enough in St. Mary's County to make that happen. It just takes a little bit of time.
The projects that are on the boards right now, like Stewart's Grant, okay, so almost 1,200 new homes. And it's in the area of off of Great Mills Road near Quatman Drive, back in near Sanders Lake and so forth, over towards Willows Road. You have a new elementary school right down there at Carver. That's going to be impacted immediately. Okay. So at Stewart's Grant, this is a spectacular dump of homes into Lexington Park. 1,200 homes, that's more than the old Patuxent Park and maybe Essex South combined. So you're doubling the size of Lexington Park, and you only have the Lexington Park Elementary School, which is a very old school, Carver Elementary, which is 10 years old. You know, you have how does this work? That the Planning Commission and the County Commissioners can do this, and then they turn around and go, oh, well, look at the problems we just created. Is it time to think about a moratorium on new developments in the county?
Yeah, it's been past time to think about that. And the reason is, it's not because...
we have too many developers that are very successful at financing county commissioners.
Yeah, there is that.
I mean, this guy Ostro, he came out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden they're loading him up with money. He just voted to raise taxes from his Alaskan cruise. He did it by Zoom. What a technocrat guy he is.
Yeah.
But all the developers are putting money in his kitty.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've attended by Zoom, but never from Alaska, so that's,
Alaska.
That's the first.
Yeah, I don't think, he probably didn't even hiccup with his margarita.
Probably not, but you can tell by some of the voting. But do I think it's time for a moratorium? I think it's definitely time to let a moratorium. All of this development has done nothing to allow our public works to catch up, our sheriff's department to catch up, our state police to catch up, our state's attorney's office to catch up. We're not even talking about the Metropolitan Commission and all the infrastructure that needs to be put in place for that. Utilities, cable. It's just not there. Then the school system, well, due to the fact that the commissioners didn't fund the entire budget, rather they put $18.6 million towards pay raises for the schools, they're already doing a redistricting. So guess what that means for parents? This Board of Commissioners has allowed this development to happen, and that's going to impact the schools, so you're likely going to have to redistrict again. And what else does that mean? It means crime is going to go up. I already talked about the self-inflicting wound. So when that crime continues to go up, overtime's going to go up, sheriff's department budget's going to go up, the deputies are going to continue to leave, whether it's management or being overworked, regardless of pay. So it's all self-inflicted wounds. And then how are you going to pay for everything when you've already maxed out the income tax? You've already raised property taxes, you've raised fees. What else are you going to do? Where are you going to get the money? You're not. Maybe they'll get it from the 86 positions Hewitt added in the 25th hour on one of the budgets, where we were looking at him crazy, but he got the 3 votes to add 86 positions, which still remain vacant to this day in county government. So you're paying for positions and not getting services. Yeah, there's a problem with development in the county, but there's also a problem with commissioner leadership and allowing this development to happen without thinking about the impact to every single citizen. And I want citizens to look at it this way. When you're driving northbound out of the county and you stop there at Route 6 and you're stuck at that light, then you drive maybe quarter of a mile, stuck at another light. Then less than a quarter of a mile, you're stuck at another light. Oh wait, there's one more traffic light before you get out of the county now on a 2-lane road that probably now needs to be a 3-lane road. There's a Sheetz being built, another hotel being built, and I believe there's a traffic light going at that intersection. How many traffic lights do we need to get out of St. Mary's County? The world may never know, but that's this Board of Commissioners. They allowed it to happen. When I was on that board, we didn't get that development. It would have been done right. We got the farmers market off of 6. We moved it off the roadway, eased the traffic congestion. This board increased it again. It's just not being done right. And they come in at the 25th hour again with a comprehensive plan. Hold on, let's let the developers build anything they want, and then we'll put the plan in place. And by the way, we won't market it appropriately, so we only get 200 comments out of a population of roughly 120,000 people.
Well, couldn't we just pre-bribe the commissioners, raise their pay, and make campaign donations from developers illegal? And that way the commissioners could work for the people instead of the developers.
Yeah, that'd be nice. There's a lot of special interests that get it with the campaign donations.
Okay. What about the tax money that goes to private organizations? Like this money in a bond bill for $25,000 or $35,000 for a new air conditioning unit for the Elks Lodge. The Elks Lodge is a private club. I mean, they have a private pool, and not too many years ago they wouldn't even let black kids go swim there. And the taxpayers are paying for their air conditioning.
You know, the biggest issue beyond the money being used to pay for the air conditioning over there is quite a few things. If you back it up a little bit further with FDR running down that way. Right. So Commissioner Hewitt and Commissioner Ostro are both members of the Elk. Commissioner Hewitt took part in one way or another about negotiation of the land related to FDR because he was a part of the Elk. Huge conflict. He should have stepped away from that. But then all of a sudden, when the legislation's posted to them, and they did get briefed on it, I believe it was March 12th, 2024 was the actual date of the commissioners' meeting. They got briefed on that bill. Not one of them recused themselves. Not one of them said, I need to step away because I'm a member. They just got the memo and continued on. So it's not just about the money, right? It's about the conflicts and how they're directing the money that goes there. I think there's two folds with that. And that needs to be pointed out that for some reason or another, these particular commissioners are able to get away with this and nobody's holding them accountable.
Well, we just had one of the most important votes to take place for the future Lexington Park and getting rid of the blight is the company that's coming in and redeveloping the old Millicent Plaza. They needed some zoning changes in a couple of those parcels, and your Lexington Park Commissioner, Ostro, he had to abstain from it because he's already in the cookie jar of that company. He's already taken donations from them, Atlantic Realty, whatever their name is. So here's your Lexington Park Commissioner should be voting for and taking part in the decision making, and he can't because he's already on their payroll.
There you have it. There you have it.
Okay. Well, I should say former Commissioner O'Connor and soon to be Commissioner again. Is there anything else you want to talk about while we're talking today?
You know, I think the biggest thing is that what people need to think about in this next election, regardless of who's running for whatever office it is, pull out your pay stub, pull out your tax bill from your home, and see how much less money this board is letting you keep your paycheck. See how much regulation they've done and how they've been absent. They've been asleep at the wheel. The Pascal House is a perfect example of how they're asleep at the wheel. Every development that's come along this way, it's time to get back to where things need to be And when it comes to the borrowing that this county has done, I want people to look at it this way. When you own a vehicle and you're going to buy a new car, and you haven't paid off that car that you own, all right? You go there, you're still going to be rolling that money over, and you're going to be paying interest on it, and that's exactly what this county has done. They've quadrupled the debt that you're paying on for projects that some of them are just not necessary. And there's no plan to find the money or pay for it except raising taxes. So that's important. We need to get back to basics. We need to continue lowering taxes. We need to continue putting money back into the people's pocket. And just stop all the tax and spend Democrat ways that this so-called old Republican board has done. I mean, I don't even know why they got to put a Democrat up in some cases. This board's done a great job for them.
That's true.
So,
Okay. Well, John O'Connor, we're at Fissy's Marina. This is Ken Rosagnar with the Chesapeake Today, and thank you very much. Make sure you visit Fissy's, open weekends. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, great crab cakes, and outside or inside dining like we are now. All right. Thank you.